Today I'm going to show you how to make homemade butter. This is surprisingly simple to make. It's very inexpensive even compared to the store-bought fresh butters. All you really need is some heavy whipping cream and some salt if you so choose. So at least you know when you make this that it's not only fresh, but there's no mystery ingredients. There's no chemicals or preservatives or anything of that nature. And you also know that it's a pure solid butter and it's not cut or diluted with fats, oils, flours, or extra cream even. So there's a couple of different ways you can do this. The way I'm going to show you today is going to be with a simple, cheap cake mixer. And I'll tell you the different ways that you can do this. There is one way that is a little bit simpler than this, but I want you to be able to see all of these steps and processes involved, so doing it this way you'll be able to actually visually see what is going on. So I'm going to show you how to do that. It's very easy. Homemade butter tastes great. It tastes fresh. Like I said, it's much healthier. And the best thing of all, it's extremely simple. You'd be surprised how easy it is to do it. And it's cheap. It costs a lot less than buying it in the store. So it's a win-win-win-win-win all the way around. It's just really just a great little tip for your home kitchen. The process to making butter is really just constantly stirring heavy cream until the fats separate from the liquids. Now there's several different ways you can do this. If you have an old-fashioned butter churn, then of course you just use the butter churn. But as most people don't have access to those things anymore, and if you were to go out and purchase one, it would pretty much make it not cost effective enough to even be making homemade butter. So you can do this without any help of appliances or anything like that by just putting the cream into a mason jar and closing the lid and shaking it. Not shaking it like this, but shaking it like this. This was a great tip that I got from a friend of mine, and I kind of cheated a little bit and found an even easier way to do it. But the way she does it is she just shakes the jar, and if you shake it long enough, eventually those fats are going to separate. Now this is quite a workout and it will take a little while, so me being a little bit less enthused about doing it that way, I found an easier way to do it. The way I'm going to show you today is with a cake mixer. Now, and then this way I'm going to show you, we're pretty much just going to mix it until they begin to separate. Now an even easier way than this is to do it with a food processor, especially if you have one that doesn't have a blade but you can put a little paddle in it instead of the blade. If you do it in the food processor, you just turn it on and go, and it's going to go until it makes it. So that's really the easiest way, but since I know almost everybody has one of these and you can buy them now for like $9, I'm going to go ahead and do it this way. Plus it's going to allow me to show you the process where you can see exactly what's going on in the different stages of the butter. Because when you make butter, you go through several different stages. That is the process of making homemade whipped cream, homemade buttercream, homemade buttermilk. All these different things are all part of the process of making butter. So I'll show you the different stages and what to look for. Alright, now to do this with the cake mixer, you're going to need a rather deep bowl, just for the sake of not letting it splash out everywhere. So go ahead and get you a big deep bowl or a pot or whatever you have handy. You're going to get you some heavy whipping cream. You can do this in large quantities or just the little carton. The first time I tried it with just a little half carton to make sure that it worked properly. But since it works so wonderful and it keeps so well for so long in the fridge, and it's just so fresh and amazing and perfect, that now I buy it in the larger containers and make it. So we're going to pour it all in our bowl. Okay. So what you've got is just a big bowl of cream. At this point, and I'm going to try to do this without making a big mess, put your cake mixer on the lowest setting and just start mixing. Alright, I've been whipping it for a little while, and what I like to do is every few minutes I stop and I stir it, because I find that it thickens a lot quicker after I stop and stir for a little while than if I just keep going with the whip, because the whip kind of keeps moving it back out. So I stop and I'll stir it. And at this point we pretty much have the beginning stages of whipped cream, the kind you would put like on a strawberry shortcake. So you'd add your sugars and your vanilla if you wanted, and if you wanted to, whatever ingredients you would like to make this into whipped cream. But at this stage we're pretty much at whipped cream, maybe just a little bit more whipping and you'd have whipped cream. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue to whip it. You may think there's no way that's gonna ever turn into solid butter, but believe me, it will, and it feels like magic. So I'm just gonna continue to whip. Alright, to show you, I've only gone a few more seconds and it's already becoming legitimate whipped cream. So there you go, we're already in the whipped cream stage. It really doesn't take very long at all. Another tip, if you wanted to do this without using any store-bought ingredients, if you have access to a milk cow or a dairy farm that will let you access raw milk, there's two ways you can do this from milk straight from the cow. If you wanted to leave it absolutely raw, then you could put the milk in the refrigerator and the cream's gonna already kind of come to the top a little bit, and then after it's chilled a little bit, you do exactly the same thing. It'll take longer because you've got to pull all that stuff out of the milk, and the cream and everything has to separate. But you could do it that way, or the more common way is to simply put the milk on the stove straight from the cow and boil it a little while, and the cream is gonna kind of come to the top. You skim the cream off the top and do this, and you'll get the exact same thing. You can make your butter from fresh milk straight from the cow. But for those who don't have access to raw milk or to a milk cow or dairy farm, you can do it this way with this heavy whipping cream. Alright, so we're in the whipped cream stage, so this is how you make homemade whipped cream. Continue beating. The next stage is going to be the butter frost. Alright, I don't know how well you can see this, but whipping it just a little bit more, we're now in the buttercream frosting stage. You see how it's kind of like chopped butter. It's not as smooth anymore. It's not like the whipped cream because it's no longer creamy. It's beginning to have a little bit of a texture to it when I whip it. So at this point, what we've got is buttercream. So this you can take out and say put in the freezer or whatever to make like buttercream frosting. This is a great base for cake frosting. So, and if you taste this, you'll notice that it's beginning to get a slight yellow tint. If you taste it, it's got a little bit of a buttery taste. It's not very strong, but it's got a buttery taste. You can taste it. So you could add your confection sugars and whatever else you want to this to make icing, and it makes a wonderful icing. It's got a nice buttery taste, but it's not butter yet. This is buttercream like you would use to make buttercream frosting. So, continuing to whip. At this point, you want to remember to stop every once in a while and stir, because like I said, I find that speeds up the process. Just to stop and stir it with a spoon every once in a while. Fold that around. And then at this point, you definitely want to turn your mixer all the way up to its highest speed so that you can get it whipped as quickly as possible. So I've been doing it on a low speed so far, getting it whipped, turning it all the way up, and really working it out now. You'll notice that it's becoming more and more yellow. You'll notice that it's becoming more and more yellow. I don't know if you could hear when I said that, but it's becoming very yellow now. And you'll know that you're just about done when you begin to see the curds separating from the buttermilk. So keep going. If you don't see cream coming out, you're not ready to keep going. Just because it's yellow doesn't mean it's done. Until you see the cream separating from the pretty solid curds, you need to keep mixing. Because right now we've got a nice fluffy butter is what we have, but we need to get all that cream out so that it'll keep for a while in the fridge. If you put it up like this, the cream's going to separate in the fridge after a few days and it's going to get runny. So we need to keep mixing. Alright, it's beginning to separate. Watch when I stop how it comes out. Look. You'll see how the cream is coming out in the bottom. Watch, let me show you like this. See how that cream is beginning to separate from the curds? Alright, we got to get all that out. That's your buttermilk. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start siphoning off the buttermilk, because that is what's going to cause it to firm up. Catch this better so I don't spill it. It's okay if you get some little butter curds in the buttermilk. Makes it taste all the better. And this, of course, is what you would use to make your buttermilk biscuits and so forth. You don't have to worry about getting every little drop out right now, because we're going to keep beating until it separates better. Remembering to stir it. Pulling all the bits off the walls and bringing it back down to the bottom. Start it back in there. Don't worry that you're mixing the cream back in. The more you beat it, the more the cream is actually going to separate. The solid butter curds are going to begin to stick to themselves and to each other more and more. And the cream will separate more and more. So this is another reason I like doing this in a big bowl as opposed to the other methods, because it makes it easy, I find, to separate the buttermilk. Pull in your curds and press. Let me go ahead and drain off some of this buttermilk. Okay, moving that aside. I can now begin to press this butter a little bit more, and that's going to drain off. The more this cream you get out, the more solid your butter is going to be, the slower it's going to melt when you're cooking with it or using it, and the longer it's going to last in the fridge. If there's still cream in it, it's going to separate and it's going to make it soft and runny. You'll notice when you make your butter, if you get the cream out, that it's a lot more solid than most of the butters you buy in the store. That's because they leave a lot of this cream in it for the purpose of stretching it and making it seem like there's more butter in there than there actually is. But taking the cream out will also give your butter a much longer shelf life than what you would typically buy in the store. Now, what I like to do is I like to go ahead and whip it a few more times and press and whip and press to make sure I've gotten as much of that cream out as possible. Remember to use the low speed again so you don't fling it everywhere. Okay. And I'm going to take my butter and gather it all back together up here and press. Now, you know I do everything messy like, so I find the best way to do this, unless you're going to like press it in cheesecloth, which is not at all necessary, is to go ahead and just use my hands. So I'm going to take my fingers and just press it. And you'll see that as I squeeze it, all that cream is coming out. This is really good for your hands, by the way, and your hands are going to smell like awesome sweet cream for like days after you do this. Make sure your hands are clean, of course. This butter is still a little bit soft for my liking. I'm going to go ahead and press it, because the more solid your butter is, like I said, the more well preserved, the longer it's going to last. and I like to make large quantities. So I'm going ahead, that's mostly drained. I'm gonna go ahead and drain that off. I'm gonna whip it one more time to try to drain any bit of butter and the cream that's left. Milk. Okay. Seems like it's pretty dry. There's not a lot of cream separating from it now, so I think we've gotten most of it. And even completely unrefrigerated in the middle of the summer in Louisiana, it's kind of warm in here. It's holding a good form. So I think we're good as far as getting the cream out. So now that we know the cream is out, what I'm gonna do, and you don't have to do this part, I'm gonna add just a little bit of sea salt. If you like your butter unsalted, you don't have to do this, but if you're making large quantities, I recommend that you do, because the salt will help to preserve it and keep it fresh a little bit longer. But you can use a healthier salt than what is typically used than the processed chemicals. You can do like I do and put a little touch of sea salt in it. Doesn't take much, maybe like 1/4 of a teaspoon, just a little bit. And then I'm gonna whip it back in. Make sure it's all mixed. All right, it's nice and solid. It's coming off of the beater now. Typically at this point I would just put it straight into my container and put it in the fridge. But for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to put it in a measuring cup so that we can see how much butter we actually came out with. So that's pretty good, just over 2 cups. So out of 1 container of heavy whipping cream that costs $2 something, just under $3, we got over 2 cups worth of fresh butter and all of this buttermilk as well. So comes out a lot cheaper, because where I live, I know the last time I went to buy butter, it was over $5 a box, and I only use real butter. I don't use margarines and stuff, so I use this a lot. So for me, it's very, very economical to go ahead and just make it. Plus it tastes so much better. You make a pie with this compared to the store-bought stuff, and you can really tell the difference. So it tastes better, it's better for you, and it's less expensive, which is always a win-win-win-win. So for me at this point, what I'm going to do is I put it in my Tupperware. If you want it, you could put it in a square Tupperware and cut it into the little sticks just like you buy it. But I usually just go and scoop it out, and I put it in the fridge for a little while. This is really solid, and even at room temperature, it's going to stay solid. But once you put it in the fridge, it really firms up, because the longer it sits and the longer it cools, the more it firms. So I'll show you how it cuts and how it functions afterwards. But even pressed like it is, you can cut through this. And the longer it sits, the more it's going to set, and I can already tell just by the way I'm rubbing this that it's already setting to a thicker form. So there it is, my butter's in there. It's butter. And I'm going to go ahead and put it in the fridge. As you can see, out of our $3 or less worth of heavy whipping cream, we have gotten quite a lot of butter and half a mason jar, and this is the large jars, worth of buttermilk. And you can see now that it's set just a little while, it's gotten very, very firm, and this will cut just like store-bought butter. If you wanted this to spread easier, you could warm it up or let it sit out to room temperature, but even at room temperature it's going to be pretty firm because I pressed so much of the buttermilk out. If you wanted this butter to be a little bit softer, all you'd have to do is leave a little bit of that buttermilk in. But it's great. It really has a wonderful flavor. This is pure, real, genuine butter, You will love this if you try it, and I guarantee you, you will most likely never buy store-bought butter again because it's just so easy, so good for you, and so delicious.